The night smelled like hot pennies and orange blossoms, the San Gabriel Valley's strange mix when the day is done and the freeway hasn't slept yet. I turned onto Quiet Knoll and let the garage rose guide me home. Stucco, hedges, 12 mouths of aluminum lined up against 12 more. I parked 2 bays from mine because the opener had started sulking, pausing halfway like it needed a reason to finish. I promised myself I'd fix it next weekend, the way you promise the sky you'll drink more water. The street lamp at the end of the lane did 2 quick hiccups of light. Coincidence? Still, my chest made its little rope. 1, 2, 3. By 5 I could hear my own breath again. I carried in groceries. Keys in my fist, metal teeth tucked between knuckles like I'd been taught in parking lot folklore. Inside, the lemon oil my roommate swore by, a coffee table too clean for students, our answering machine blinking a red one like a polite cough. I set milk and eggs where they belonged, tore coupons off junk mail and left them to die on the counter, then remembered the letters I hadn't mailed. The box was only a few doors down. I told the door I'd be right back, as if it cared. Our garage rows held their breath the way long hallways do. Someone's dryer thumped a steady rhythm. Someone's radio mumbled. Somewhere beyond the hedges the 10 whispered its zipper noise across the valley. Unit 3's garage door was up. The light inside was the tired yellow of a bulb that wanted a new job. A woman stepped into the rectangle and lifted her hands, palms out, like she'd met an ocean. The keys in her right fist flashed. I didn't see him at first. I saw only the way her spine narrowed, as if trying to become a wire. Then he was there in the corner of the light, a cap, a shoulder too careful, a face that wouldn't let the bulb explain it. "Hey," I said, because my mouth knocks on air when my hands are full. A hard pop cracked the night. For a blink the world was a photograph, her raised hands, the small starburst, the flung arc of a key ring. Concrete took the sound and threw it back as proof. My body folded to the stucco without asking my brain. 1, 2, 3. The woman vanished behind the garage wall the way heat leaves a plate. Then she ran. First the crouch run of someone told to be smaller, then the good form of a person who remembers what legs are for. The man pivoted toward the echo like he could interrogate it. Half a step forward, half back. A listener. Then he slid out of the light and into the seam between buildings, quick without hurrying, practiced without being loud. 4, 5, 6. Here, this way, I said, too loud, pointing toward the open mouth of my place. She matched me for 3 steps, then stopped hard. Her head tipped a fraction, listening inward. She took a breath through her teeth. "No," she whispered, not to me, to the doorway. Not a refusal. A diagnosis. The air inside my condo had the wrong temperature, as if a second door were open somewhere, all the way in the back. 7, 8, 9. We pivoted in sync, a small flock. Not toward my couch. Away. Running down the row, our shadows cutting thin lines across clean concrete. At the driveway mouth, a sedan slowed with its windows down and its conscience undecided. "Help," the woman said, not screaming. The word flat and firm, like a command you give your own lungs. The car stopped. Doors opened. Good shoes touched the ground. "What happened?" the driver's wife asked, already angling the passenger seat back, the dome light offering a small room. "Man in our garage," I said. "And someone inside my place." The last part tasted like hot metal. The driver ran to the nearest porch and hammered a knocker. A light came on, a door opened, a landline became an instrument. He repeated our street as if it were a code that might make sirens obey. "Now," he said into the phone, and whoever answered believed him. 10, 11, 12. The garage light across the way hummed like a cheap halo. The key ring lay near the line where clean concrete turned stained, a small metal flower that had refused to open. The woman sat in the car with both hands still up, fingers splayed, staring at them like they were clever strangers. There was a blood-pink half-moon pressed into her palm where the keys had been. I passed her the keys without touching her skin. They were warm, as if they had kept the light. Sirens have a way of arriving from everywhere at once when it is your turn. Blue/red unscrolled across stucco. A deputy took a stance at the edge of my doorway, shoulder to jam, flashlight cupped like a portable sun. Sheriff's Department, he called into my hallway, which answered with lemon oil and something not ours. Another deputy stepped into Unit 3's garage and let his eyes take careful pictures. He did not touch anything. He did not fill the silence with sentences that couldn't carry the weight. Stay here, a third told us, voice even, and for once I wanted to obey. The woman's breath had learned the steady rhythm of a person who will live to tell the story. Mine copied hers like a kid in the next desk over during a test. The driver's wife kept her palm on the woman's shoulder, not pressing, present. 13, 14, 15. Someone's small dog found its bark and insisted on a perimeter. A garage at the far end groaned, somebody late, stepping into a night they would have to learn how to live in. A deputy crouched beside me. Name? I gave it. He wrote it in a notebook that looked like it had eaten too many names. You live here? For now. The honesty surprised me and floated between us like a leaf. Did you see him? Cap. A shoulder like it didn't want to relax. I didn't say the word I was thinking, patient. It didn't belong to Mouse tonight. Face? The light didn't want to introduce us. He almost smiled, then didn't. Did you hear? He didn't finish the question. He didn't need to. We both listened to the echo that was still somewhere in the concrete, finishing its lap. I told him what I could hold: tired bulb, raised hands, that hard pop, the ring of keys learning gravity, the seam between buildings that swallowed a man like it had been waiting. He looked at my doorway. We'll clear it, he said, and the plural was a kindness. Inside, the living room made scraping noises like furniture remembering where it belonged. Quiet in a rhythm that wasn't ours. A low voice. Two higher ones answering. The sound of a chain lifted and placed, proof a door could finish a sentence. 16, 17, 18. I kept my eyes on the woman in the passenger seat because she was the only thing that made sense. She was 20-something in a sweatshirt, a person who had meant to be inside by 9, a person whose hands had caught light and turned it into luck. You're okay, the driver's wife said to her, the way strangers do when the truth is too big for the hour and has to be delivered in pieces. I saw him, the woman said, more to herself than to us. I saw his eyes. They were not surprised. She swallowed. He expected me. I didn't say what happened in Unit 3 after she ran inside. I didn't ask. There are sentences that don't belong to you even if you were nearby when they were written. 19, 20. The deputies emerged from my place muted, a choreography of radio clicks and nods. Clear, one said, and the word didn't mean what it usually does. It meant only, right now, this minute, the couch belongs to you again. A paramedic guided the woman to the back of an ambulance where the lights were unashamedly bright. He examined her palm like it held a secret. She had the small shake of someone whose nerves were doing arithmetic under her skin. A deputy handed me my keys in a plastic bag and told me not to stay alone tonight, like he was giving me a recipe. I nodded. I wasn't going to. Ma'am, another asked gently. Do you remember anything else? Sound, smell, words? I surprised myself by answering with the only honest thing I knew. The sound learned the room and came back certain. He wrote it down anyway. That's the job. When the sirens left, they took the part of the night that was happening to everyone. What remained belonged to us. I locked my door. Then I locked it again. The lemon oil did its best to pretend nothing had been curious in here. The answering machine blinked a 0, although it owed me a message. I unplugged it like a mouth that had told a bad joke. On a clean index card, I wrote in block letters and taped it above the phone where hands go without thinking. Count even when you think the lamp is lying. Trust what concrete tells you back. Don't enter a room just because your couch lives there. Run is a complete sentence. The refrigerator hummed its imitation of a heart. I let it. Machines like jobs. When I finally slept, it was in intervals: closed door, cracked door, closed. In the dream, the garage was only a diagram. Light made honest squares. A cap turned away. Keys flashed once and became orbit again. Morning did its best impression of innocence. The HOA slid a typed notice under every unit: safety meeting Tuesday, garages must remain closed when not in use. I put it on the fridge under a strawberry magnet and told it I'd be there. I was at the sink when the news said Monterey Park. Same night. Different city. Another woman in a lot like ours, not far, not strangers to us by any measure but one. I turned the volume down until the anchor's mouth was only shapes, then off until the television was a piece of furniture again. I rubbed at the crescent in my own palm where keys had left an echo of their shape. It wasn't a wound. It was a reminder. I called Jenny and said the ritual. I'm in. She said it back. Then we counted together, not for magic, for math. A rope you make out of numbers so you can hold the room steady while you leave it. 1, 2, 3, 20. Good, she said. Good, I said. The station smelled like floor cleaner and paper warmed by machines. A corkboard hosted 1,000 square tragedies written on index cards. The detective, quiet eyes, tie like a concession, sat me in a chair and asked me to start at the light. 2 flickers, I said. I counted without meaning to. You count often? Not a challenge, inventory. When the air changes. He wrote that, counts when the air changes. They recorded my statement twice, once on a cassette with a red light like a patient eye, and once on a form with boxes that tried to make verbs obedient. I told what I could hold: the yellow bulb, raised hands, the hard pop, the way concrete learned the sound and set it back, the shape in the seam that moved like it knew the script. When he asked about a face, I said the light refused introductions. Do you need an advocate? He asked, which meant another pair of ears. I told him I had a friend named Jenny and a person who sends paper when I need it. He didn't ask for Kite's address. I didn't have one. At home, the opener grease smelled like a machine trying to apologize. I wiped the track, fed the chain a thin silver line, and changed the bulb above the bay for a stronger wattage that made a square I could trust. I pulled the red handle so the door could be moved by human intention if the motor forgot its job. I pointed the car nose out of habit and then out of principle. The HOA meeting filled the rec room with folding chairs and the kind of faces apartments make out of strangers. A deputy pointed at a diagram of our lot. Report suspicious activity sat on the poster like it knew it was obvious and still necessary. A neighbor and advisor asked, what counts as suspicious? And the deputy said, the thing you hesitated about yesterday, and for a heartbeat we loved him. We built an after-action binder because paper behaves. Tabs, lighting, locks, laundry, garage rows, walk widths, notes for new tenants. People signed their names next to small jobs that make bigger ones possible. Eddie and C12 took bulbs, ladders in my van. Mrs. Salgado claimed laundry latch, I yell better than a sign. I wrote concrete rules at the top of a page and copied a list on cream paper that had arrived in my mailbox without a stamp. Count echoes. 1 echo equals small room, 2 equals bay, more equals maze. Don't let fear make conversation with the third echo. Corners cost. Take them wide. Show your shoulder to space, not to a wall. Never back into a bay. If you feel the room tug, fall forward into light. Keep one hand free. Keys are distance more than they are doors. If a voice says just, make it never. Loud is early. If you can't be early, be loud and then leave. Practice when safe. The body remembers what the mind negotiates away. Inventory temperature, not plot. The laundry room hummed like a small power station. Posted rules read like recipes, clean lint trap. No dyes after 10 p.m. Report outages. The new latch made an honest clack when it shut. A clipboard hung by a string, people wrote their names and times without being told. Community is sometimes paperwork that cares. He tried the door anyway. Not the same man from the seam, a cousin from the same bad family. Maintenance, he said, voice wrong, time wrong, shirt without a stitched name. I was midway through folding a towel that still held the dryer's heat. Occupied, I said, letting the tile turn it bell-shaped. I angled my body so my exit was air, not apology. Quick check, he tried, lifting a roll of tape like a prop, the kind of silver that convinces itself it's professional. Come back with the office, I said. 9 to 5. He hesitated long enough to learn we practiced. Then I blew the whistle we'd been given in the courtyard. Sounded brinkmanship in concrete, tried to make a conversation with fear. The whistle filled the corners first. A door across the hall opened, a woman in slippers stepped out with a mop like a staff. The manager came from the office with a set jaw and a phone already dialing. The man's shoes remembered another appointment. The next cream paper from Kite said, good use of loud. Concrete rooms try to make a conversation out of fear. Turn it into weather. Under that, 3 lines. If it echoes twice, you leave. If it echoes thrice, you are already leaving. If your mouth wants to apologize, blow the whistle. We taped copies where hands go, on the garage wall near the pull cord, inside the laundry room, behind our front doors, eye level, so that leaving comes with instructions. We practiced in the courtyard under sodium lights. Key stayed in hands, elbows learned bone from soft, voices learned range. The instructor kept saying, you don't have to win the room. You have to leave it. I wrote that on a card and taped it above the phone. News kept its cadence, thin facts carrying more weight than light. Same night, other city. The words survived and did not sitting side by side like 2 people on a bench who will never speak to each other. I didn't clip the name. I don't collect names. I collect exits and verbs that save you. The one I keep fits on a card, ran. At Monterey Park Station a week later, a detective with a steady mouth asked if I would listen to a few recordings. Not a lineup, she said. Echoes. Men asking the world for a small favor that costs everything. Quick word. 2 minutes. Help me with, the edges blurred across place and date. None of them were the garage doorway from that night. All of them were the room. Any particular? She asked. The word quick has a different temperature, I said. When a man believes he owns your time, he rounds the eye. When he's guessing, it's clipped. She wrote it down like a recipe she might try later. She showed me photographs after, caps, jackets, shoes. I was useless to paper. I didn't know which silhouette belonged to whose night. We both knew that and did the dance anyway, because sometimes the dance keeps you from falling. A month turned. The preliminary headlines learned courtroom words, identified in one place, linked to another. I read just enough to confirm the nouns, Rosemead, Monterey Park, garage, apartment, survived. I left the rest under the sugar bowl. Justice is a noun that takes years to conjugate. Survival is a verb you use now. The binder grew a notes for new tenants page, things leases never say. Pull through, nose out. Keys equals distance, not doors. One hand free. Occupied out loud, not in your head. If a voice says just or quick, make it never. Practice the count while safe so it's there when it's not. Call when you get in. 2 rings and hang up if you don't want to talk. We left a copy in every empty unit. We slid another under the laundry room glass. The office started a small phone tree where people called down the line with a single word, in. The answering machines learned to love it. The woman from Unit 3 came back to her place with new locks and a plant that overflowed its pot the way a person sometimes has to. We didn't crowd her with words. She parked nose out. She carried her keys like distance. She waved at me with a hand that had learned a new alphabet. A deputy stood in our garage row at dusk and took a photograph that made a rectangle of light look honest. "You folks wrote yourself safer," he said, not a compliment so much as a diagnosis. "That binder'll outlive this." "I hope so," I said. Kite's last note for that season arrived folded small enough to hide under a stamp. "File, open, but yours is closed enough to sleep. You did the unglamorous miracle. You turned panic into practice and practice into habit. Habits change rooms. Continuity is not comfort. It's a road. You will smell concrete again in some other city's mouth. You already know what to do with it." She drew the little open square she always draws. At the hinge she inked a tiny number, 20. I taped it above the phone. I called Jenny without looking at the clock. "I'm in," I said. "Me too," she said. "Count anyway." We did. The rope stretched between 2 places that had learned how to keep breath in their rooms. 20. 21, for the habit that leaves the edge behind. The lamp at the end of the lane hiccuped its 2 beats and settled. The refrigerator practiced being a heart. The door under my palm kept the shape I asked it to keep because I had given it a word. Occupied. The door understood. So did I. The papers gave him a name the city could say without choking. A nickname that sounded like a radio show and felt like a weather warning, Night Stalker. I turned the dial down when they said it, the way you dim a lamp that's being dramatic. At the station they asked if I'd look at a composite sketch. A man with a cap that could be anyone's cap and eyes that belonged to too many nights. They didn't ask me to bless it, they asked me to look and see if the temperature matched. It did. Paper isn't a face, but it can remember the chill. On the corkboard, someone had pinned a map with pins that wanted to be a constellation, Rosemead. Monterey Park. Thread between them like a vein. A note in block letters, Avia SHOE, size 11 to 12. Not my night, not my row, but details travel like rumors. I filed the word shoe under things floors will tell on. Kite's letter came folded into the corner of a flyer like she wanted the paper to eavesdrop. "Do not let a nickname do the decorating," she wrote. "Rooms don't care what a man is called. They respect only practice." Underneath, in that tidy hand that makes ink feel disciplined. "Listen for shoes. Cheap rubber talks. Watch hands, not faces. Hands sell the trick first. Nose out always. Never argue with a seam that wants to keep a shadow." I taped it above the phone and called Jenny. "I'm in," I said. "Me too," she said. We counted anyway because the rope likes the attention. That week we learned how to walk our noise. No headphones after dark, not even the good mixtapes. Keys outside the purse, not because keys are weapons, because keys are distance. You can throw keys farther than you can throw a door. The HOA binder grew thicker than it had any right to be. Under lighting we logged bulb wattage and timestamps, replaced 60W with 75W 3/18, base 7. Under garage rows we added a diagram somebody's uncle drew with a carpenter's pencil, rectangles, sightlines, the seam between buildings shaded like a bruise. Under laundry, Mrs. Salgado had written in giant letters, "Maintenance equals daylight," and, underneath it, loud as early like a motto for a flag. A news van idled at the driveway one evening, the reporter's lips practicing the word stalker until it lost meaning. Neighbors came home and didn't give them what they wanted. We kept our nouns small: row, light, door, echo, run. The woman from Unit 3 came back with a new lock and a plant that didn't fit its pot. She watered it anyway, like abundance is a good problem. We stood together once under the squared-off light in her bay and practiced the only sentence that mattered: run is complete. No cosigner necessary. She said, I keep seeing his eyes. I said, I keep seeing the seam. We nodded, which is how two truths shake hands. I learned the shape of late. It is the minute after the laundry room shuts. It is the minute after a door remembers it has two locks and you only turned one. It is the minute after a street lamp hiccups twice and you don't count. Late tries to sell panic as urgency. We chose practice instead. The station asked me to sit with a lineup that isn't, shoes on a table, the bottoms photographed, zigzags and squares, the way rubber memorizes its own exits. We think he favors this tread, a detective said, pointing. Leaves it where concrete will volunteer commentary. Concrete loves a gossip, I said. He laughed without looking away from the print. That it does. I didn't have a shoe to offer them, but I had the sound, that skidding hush in the seam, the unhurried pivot that treats corners like polite company. They wrote it down as if it could be subpoenaed. Kite phoned from a line with cafeteria noise behind it. Let the nickname be a radio you can turn down, she said. Stay with the room. I am, I said. We wrote our own volume knob. I told her about the binder tabs, about walk with times, about the chalk hopscotch the kids drew down the row with run in the last square like a chorus. Good, she said. Teach your feet when nothing is wrong. That's when muscle remembers best. He didn't come back to our row, not that week. Monterey Park got 3 more TV trucks and a new courtesy patrol. Our binder got a laminate cover and the kind of plastic tabs that pretend to be permanent. The office added a call tree. If something felt off, you rang 5 numbers, not 1. Sideways help is faster than vertical. I practiced corners in polite daylight. Wide steps, shoulder to space. If the room tugged, I let myself fall forward into light as rehearsal. A neighbor saw me and practiced too. From balconies, people watched the choreography and joined, like a city learning a line dance nobody had to clap for. One late afternoon, the payphone on the corner rang while I was cutting through to the bodega. I answered because ringing things are invitations I can't stand to leave hanging. Counting? Kite asked. Payphones erase hello. Always, I said. Good. New note for concrete, she said, and dictated like a nurse taking vitals. Echo twice, you leave, echo thrice, you're already leaving. If your mouth wants to apologize, blow the whistle. I wrote it with a golf pencil on the back of a receipt and taped it to the laundry clipboard with a strip of honest silver tape. The Night Stalker nickname fattened on the 6 o'clock news, but in our row it thinned to the shape of practical things: a spare bulb in Eddie's van, the whistle on a nail by the gate, the map in the binder chalked to show how long it takes to run from Bay 12 to the office door if you don't look back. A girl from Building B knocked one night. I'm walking in, she said, showing me her phone like proof, and when she got upstairs she said, say it back. We did. The Iman thread became a lullaby the complex hummed to itself. When the composite turned into a suspect list on the evening papers, I didn't look. Paper behaves, but it loves to pretend at prophecy. We gave our attention to bulbs, locks, shoes by the bed. We put cards where hands go. NO is a complete sentence. Occupied keeps a door in its shape. Count to 20. Then move. The laundromat tried us again with a man who wanted his voice to be a key. Maintenance, he said, like a word with an invoice. Quick. Never, I said, which is the long form of no. He gestured at the latch like he could make physics obey. I blew the whistle. The hallway filled with neighbors faster than air fills with fear. He left wearing every eye that didn't like his shoes. The manager stuck another sign under the glass, maintenance 9 to 5 only. If anyone says just, make it never. She underlined never with a marker that bled through like it meant it. At the next HOA meeting, the deputy brought an easel and a photo of a shoe sole. He spoke like a teacher who likes students more than chalk. You'll hear the news say Night Stalker like it's a ghost story, he said. I need you to listen for rubber instead. Rubber on concrete. Rubber on tile. That sound is free information. Use it. We added shoes to the binder index. Someone wrote Avia in the margin and circled it, not as magic, as vocabulary. Night stopped trying to whisper. They spoke at a normal volume. The lamp at the end of the row hiccuped its 2 beats and behaved. The refrigerator practiced being a heart, I let it. Machines like jobs. On March 21st, I wrote the date on a fresh card and added a line to the top we hadn't had courage for the first time. You are allowed to leave your own living room. I taped it above the phone and then I meant it. Days later, a composite on TV met a suspect's bones half a world away from our row. The anchor spoke in courtroom tense. The nickname got louder on screens and softer in our air. A woman in the other city walked into a building with a spine more reliable than the architecture. The verb I collect survived another paragraph, ran. I didn't make the trial my hobby. I practiced corners. I wrote I'm in when I was. I fixed the opener again when it forgot itself. I taped a spare key under the planter in a way only Jenny and I could read. I taught 2 girls in Building D how to make occupied ring like a bell through a door. On a still Thursday, the payphone rang again, and I answered before it could feel abandoned. File stays open, Kite said. For you, closed enough to sleep. Night Stalker? I asked, because some names need to be put on the table so they stop trying to hide under it. Nicknames are posters, she said. Rooms don't read. Keep your paper where hands go. Count even when you don't have to. Loud is early. Leave. Leave, I said, letting the word learn my teeth. We hung up. The lamp at the lane blinked twice and steadied. I counted because habit is cheaper than fear and pays better. 20. 21, for the old edge I like to leave behind. In my kitchen, the binder leaned open like a book that trusts its own spine. The last page had a square hand drawn, an open door, and inside it a small number, 20, like a bead on a string. I pressed the page flat with my palm and felt the ridges of ink. The phone on the wall stayed quiet for once. I picked it up anyway and called Jenny. I'm in, I said. Me too, she said. Count anyway. We did. The rope held. Outside, rubber on concrete said nothing at all. Inside, the door under my palm kept the shape I'd taught it. Occupied. Summer came on like a furnace door left ajar. Sirens turned seasonal, cicadas with opinions. The paper's nickname, Night Stalker, grew heavier and less useful the more anchor mouths polished it. In our row, we kept our nouns small: row, light, door, echo, run. The detective with the quiet eyes tacked a flyer in the office where rent checks and missing cat notices share a pushpin. Avia runner, size 11 to 12, wafer tread. Listen for rubber. Not magic, vocabulary. Concrete loves a gossip, rubber is how it talks. Kite's next card arrived inside a coupon mailer like she needed my scissors for cover. Nicknames are fog, she wrote. Shoes are weather. Carry the forecast. Under it, 4 lines in that disciplined hand. Hands, not faces. Faces lie to be polite. Hands forget. Listen for the pivot. Predators turn like they own corners. Nose out is mercy you give your feet. Count even when the lamp behaves. Muscle meets practice. I taped it above the phone. I called Jenny. "I'm in," I said. "Me too," she said, and we counted anyway, numbers laying down planks between rooms. The HOA binder fattened with practice. Under walk widths, a grid of names sprouted in neat squares: who's around from 8 to 9, 9 to 10, who will text if you're 5 minutes late. Under lighting, Eddie logged bulbs like baptisms: Bay 3, 75W, March 18th. Bay 9, 75W, March 22nd. Under laundry, Mrs. Salgado wrote maintenance equals daylight in letters so big you could read them from the parking lot. Knights adjusted their posture. You could feel it in your wrists. People stepped into dusk in pairs and came home nose out without congratulating themselves. The lamp at the end of the lane did its two-breath shrug and held, and I counted anyway, because rope likes hands even when the cliff is theater. One hot Thursday, I stopped at the little market by the bus stop for milk and a stubborn pack of light bulbs. The bell over the door announced me like a witness. The clerk had a baseball game on the radio so low it sounded like the crowd was sleeping. Rubber whispered on tile behind me, "SKSSSK, that confident hush that thinks it's not sound." A man drifted along the fridge doors with his head angled down, not to read labels, to erase height. Cap brim. Shoulders against a leash. Hands empty on purpose. My mouth wanted to narrate. My feet did not. "Count," said the rope. 1, 2, 3, 4. "Hey, you got a coin jar?" I asked the clerk, loud like a friendly argument. He slid a glass across the counter, and I made a performance of fishing quarters from my pocket, spilling one, chasing it with both palms like a kid. 5, 6, 7. The man's reflection skimmed across the chilled glass. He pivoted in a perfect letter S, the way corners were taught in a bad school. The rubber whispered again, "SKSSSK," and the bell over the door confessed to knowing him and then to letting him go. 8, 9, 10. The clerk cleared his throat. "You good?" "Practicing loud," I said. He nodded like I'd told him the weather. On the way home I took corners wide on purpose, shoulder to space, letting the seam between buildings stay only a seam. I set the milk down on the kitchen counter and wrote 2 more lines for the binder. Rubber on tile equals free information. Make sound yours first. We posted it under garage rows, beside the sketch of our lot where the seam is shaded like a bruise. The phone rang twice that week with station requests that were less like interrogations and more like trade. "Tell us how your row sounds when it's honest, we'll tell you how another one lies." At Monterey Park, a detective clacked a cassette into a portable and let echoes carry stories without names. Quick word. 2 minutes. "Help me carry this," men to whom air owed nothing, asking for it anyway. "Any voice?" she asked. "Not a voice," I said. "A turn. He turns like corners owe him rent." She nodded and wrote turn equals rent as if a courtroom might someday allow that sentence to stand. News drifted like ash across August: Arcadia, Whittier, Glendale. We didn't pull the details into our kitchen, we kept our lamps obedient, our cars pointed at light, our minutes accounted for. Kite called from a payphone somewhere. Wind had opinions. "You will not live every room you recognize," she said. "But you will belong to the ones you teach." "I'm teaching paper," I said. "It behaves." "Good," she said. "Paper props doors open. Doors learn." She paused. Relief in her breath. "If the city says Loa Gararon this month, let it. Don't argue with Joy because it arrived wearing the wrong suit." I didn't ask for dates. She didn't give me names. But I wrote Loa Gararon in the binder margin under call trees because vocabulary matters when relief is on the radio your neighbors actually play. The heat picked a fight with afternoon and won most days. Kids drew a hopscotch the length of the row and wrote run in the last square again because Joy can learn good words too. Someone hung a whistle by the gate like a wind chime. It didn't sing. We liked that. On August 31st, 1985, the payphone at the corner spilled Spanish like sunlight. A man in a Dodgers cap shouted into the street, "Lo agarraron," and 3 women on a porch answered like a choir. They got him. East LA. Not a press conference, not an anchor. People. The better kind of news. The binder leaned open on my kitchen table. I put my palm on the page like I was steadying a stack of plates in an earthquake. The lamp at the end of the lane hiccuped twice and steadied. I counted anyway. 1, 2, 3, 20. The 6 o'clock made a production of what our block had said in a sentence. Captured. East Los Angeles. Neighbors recognized him from the papers. Held him for police. I turned the volume down when the nickname tried to be the star. I wrote East LA, August 31st on a card and slid it under the sugar bowl with the others because some facts deserve to live in a kitchen. Jenny called first. "I'm in," she said. "Me too," I said. "Count anyway." We did. Then the "I'm in" thread lit like a string of Christmas in July. In. 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 The chorus made the complex exhale in one piece. That night the HOA meeting became a party without balloons. We ate cake from paper plates and wrote "thank you" in the binder under neighbors who taught us something: Mrs. Salgado, latch, Eddie, bulbs, Unit 3, keys equals distance, kite, paper, everyone, loud equals early. The deputy with the quiet eyes stood in the doorway like a person attending the last rehearsal before opening night and nodded as if the play would run long enough to be useful. He said, "This doesn't undo anything." We said, "No." He said, "It changes tomorrow." We said, "Yes." The woman from Unit 3 arrived late, put a hand on the binder's spine like a person greeting a dog, and wrote "I'm in" on the last page. No exclamation. Periods do better work. We didn't keep the news on, not even to feel righteous. Righteousness is an expensive habit. Practice is cheaper. We practiced corners and nose out and never arguing with a seam that wants to keep a shadow. Kite's envelope showed up the next morning, cream as always, edges educated. "File closed," she wrote, then scratched the last letter and let the line drag like a thought. "For now. Names are for courts. Rooms belong to practice. You taught yours until it remembered you. Keep the list where hands go. Don't retire the count because Joy showed up loud. Joy is a guest, habit is the lease." Under it, a small square, open door, and at the hinge, in ink smaller than my pulse, 20. I taped it above the phone and touched the number like a bead. I said occupied to the door because prayer likes practice. It kept its shape because I had taught it one. After, the days got ordinary on purpose. Laundry smelled like soap and victory. Rubber on tile said groceries and nothing else. The kids let run fade from chalk to dust, not because the word didn't matter, because the row had learned it by heart. A week later the station asked me to come in for one more process hearing, the kind that eats a morning and gives you a paper cup of water. My job was smaller than my name: confirm that locks were changed, bulbs logged, latch posted, call tree live. Yes. 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 The lawyer tried to hand me Night Stalker with a theatrical posture. I handed him row, light, door, echo, run, and he wrote them down like measurements. On the way out, the clerk said, "You did the job," and this time I said, "We did," because the binder had more fingerprints than my kitchen table. Back home, I slid a new page into notes for new tenants. You're not late if you leave. No is a complete sentence. Occupied keeps a door in its shape. Keys equals distance. One hand free. If a voice says just or quick, make it never. Count to 20. Then move. Call us when you get in. We want to hear the ordinary music of your day. I left the page open and went to the market where the clerk likes baseball. He turned the radio down and said, "Heard it on KMEX first." I said, "Me too," and we talked about the Dodgers instead, like citizens who had earned a boring conversation. Night moved back into its lane. The lamp at the end of ours hiccuped twice and behaved. The refrigerator kept pretending to be a heart. Machines like jobs. So do we. When I go to sleep now, I still put my shoes where my hands can find them. I still count when the lamp is polite. My window stays honest. The cards stay where hands go. The binder lives on a shelf in the office with a sign that says "Borrow Me," and complexes 3 streets over have started their own, with different handwriting and the same instructions. That's how roads work when they decide to be useful, they repeat. Kite's last card for this story sat under my salt shaker until the corner curled. I copied its headline onto the inside back cover of the binder because spines deserve mottos. Continuity is not comfort. It's a road. I underlined road. I sharpened a pencil. I turned to a fresh page and wrote a single word at the top in a hand that didn't shake. Not a nickname. Not a city. A thing rooms can't lie about. Light. The rest belongs to the next door that tries to own someone's name and finds out it can't. I call Jenny. "I'm in," I say. "Me too," she says. "Count anyway." We do. The rope holds. 20. 21, for the habit that leaves the edge behind. September arrived like a door you finally get to close without fighting the hinge. The roll learned to breathe in its old rhythm, the lamp at the end did its 2-breath shrug and behaved as if it had been practicing. The binder got a new tab, after, because someone said endings deserve their own paperwork. Under it we kept simple math, dates, bulbs, walk-withs that turned into friendships, the names of people who would answer the phone on the first ring. We added a photocopy of a clipping that said East LA, captured and nothing else, trimmed so the nickname couldn't sneak in. Paper knows how to be modest if you ask it. The station called about a process hearing, not drama, proof. "We're tying nights to places," the detective said. "We need a witness to confirm the roll looked the way you say it did." I wore a plain dress and a face that didn't need to be brave, just early. In the courtroom the air pretended to be a museum. Microphones made mouths official. The attorney asked the kind of questions that make good nouns. Was the garage door lit? Yes. Were maintenance hours posted? Yes. Did you replace bulbs? Yes. Did you practice leaving? Yes, and we taught the practice to our neighbors. He tried to hand me a nickname. I passed him row, light, door, echo, run instead. The judge didn't ask me to translate. On a bench afterward, a clerk pressed a paper cup of water into my hand and said, "You did the job," and I put the sentence in my pocket with the others I carry on purpose. When the mugshot finally met the composite in the papers, I turned the page and fixed the opener again because machines like attention and so do we. I didn't memorize the mouth or the eyes. I didn't let a photograph take rent in my kitchen. Rooms don't answer to names. They answer to practice. The complex returned to its petty gossip, the sprinkler that always turns left too soon, the mailbox that sticks when it's hot. The laundry room acquired a potted fern that thrived on steam and approval. The whistle on the nail by the gate became a talisman no one needed and everyone liked. Kids reduced run to a pair of chalk letters, R and U, and then to smudges we all still understood. Kite's next letter came on cream paper, tidy as a ledger. "You do not owe your attention to what courts adore," she wrote. "Give it to doorframes. Give it to timers. Give it to the sound rubber makes when it forgets to lie. Let names live on paper. Let your practice live in your hands." Under it, she added a prescription labeled "When News Wants Your House." Turn the volume down, leave captions off. Practice out loud, occupied, once a day. Replace one bulb a week even if it hasn't failed. Teach light to be reliable. Count at boring times so your body won't wait for storms to learn the math. I read it at the counter and could feel my shoulders drop into a posture I trust. I copied the list and taped one copy inside the laundry room door where hands go. The woman from Unit 3 and I met by accident in the office when we both remembered rent on the same hour. She signed her check with a steadiness I envied, then held the pen out to me like she was offering a baton in a relay. "You keeping the count?" she asked. "Loud and often," I said. "I keep hearing the pop," she said, and her voice didn't apologize for it. "I keep hearing the echo," I said. We nodded, a language of neighbors who knew the difference between sound and proof. The after tab fattened with quiet victories. Nose out became a reflex. The call tree made a small chiming music every evening as doors shut and people set into nobody and everybody. A woman from Building D wrote a script for herself and shared it on the board. "If anyone says just or quick, I will not be polite. I will be early." Sometimes the payphone rang and I answered, a habit I never broke. The line would be empty, then Kite would speak in a voice the wind couldn't interrupt. "People are going to say closure and mean celebration," she said once. "You can say maintenance and mean mercy." "I can do that," I said, and bought another bulb even though I didn't need it. Fall cooled the stucco. The opener stopped sulking. The days wore their names correctly again. Tuesday felt like a Tuesday, not a bruise. I still counted at dusk. I still said occupied through a door that had earned my trust. I still put shoes where hands can find them in the dark. Ritual is not superstition when it keeps your feet honest. A letter slipped under my door on blue ruled paper, the spiral edge frayed, the ink pressed hard like someone wanted truth to leave a dent. I parked nose out and he didn't like it. He left. "Your card said I could leave my living room." I did. "Thank you for teaching rooms," it said. No signature, just the little open square in the corner, the door half drawn. I punched it for the binder and logged it under after, "Thanks we keep." The preliminary turned into hearings with dates I didn't mark in my calendar. I answered the station when they wanted to confirm light wattage and latched hours and how many steps from Bay 7 to the office door if you carry laundry. 29 if you're calm. Fewer if you've practiced. The detective wrote it down like distances matter, because they do. The kids who chalked run taught a smaller kid to count at the seam. If it says it twice you go, if it says it 3 you're gone already. Their mother looked at me over their heads and mouthed thank you like it was a secret handshake. I started calling the binder a book out loud, because books teach rooms how to behave. Other complexes borrowed it, the laminated tabs, the checklists, the simple no/occupied/loud/count/move page that wanted to be posted everywhere. A man from 3 streets over came to return a copy and said, "My sister lives in Alhambra. We put one in their laundry room. I hope you don't mind." I said, "I want a world full of plagiarism," and meant it. On a Saturday, the market clerk slid a sheet of register paper across the counter. On it, top 10 light bulbs I trust in block letters and prices written like jokes. "Put it in your book," he said. "Folks keep asking anyway." I folded it under a tab marked lighting, notes, and the binder made an honest creak. News did what news does, made a monument out of a name and then out of a verdict. I gave it the correct amount of attention, not none, not all. A measured dose, taken with food. When strangers wanted to talk to our row like it was a shrine, we offered them cake at a birthday instead. This is how neighborhoods decide what they're for. At night I learned to love the ordinary sounds again, the clack of a latch, the small sigh of a door when a top lock seats correctly, the way the opener coughs once then pulls the bay upward like a curtain. The refrigerator kept practicing being a heart. Machines like jobs, we like rituals. Kite's penultimate letter for this file was a single sentence. You taught a room to say no without speeches. I taped it above the phone and called Jenny. I'm in, I said. Me too, she said. Count anyway. We did, because the rope is greedier than fear and better at its job. When trial finally became a word with a date and a courtroom 3 calendars away, I cut the article out and put it under the sugar bowl with the others so it couldn't glare at me from the fridge. I didn't need to see a schedule to keep my house honest. Locks don't care about subpoenas. A week later I walked past Unit 3 just as the woman was taping a list inside her door at eye level, move-in notes, and I recognized my own handwriting mixed with hers. Pull through, nose out. Keys equals distance. One hand free. Occupied out loud. If a voice says just or quick, make it never. Count to 20. Then move. Text I'm in. Someone is always listening for ordinary. She looked at me and shrugged like you do when you're embarrassed to be proud. I pointed at the last line. That's the best sentence in the house, I said. She smiled like a person whose mouth had finally learned the grammar of relief. The payphone rang once more and I couldn't help myself. Last card, Kite said, without preface. For this file. Go. Continuity isn't the same as repeating yourself, she said. It's walking the same kind of road and teaching at your pace. What do I do with the binder when everybody stops talking about it? Leave it where hands go, she said. Then start another one someplace that thinks it doesn't need it. The line clicked like a period. Wind took the dial tone. I went home and wrote start another on a sticky note and put it on the inside cover of the binder, crooked on purpose so it would be harder to ignore. That night the lamp at the end of the lane did its 2-breath shrug and held steady, a small, faithful machine. I counted anyway. 1, 2, 3, 20. I put my palm on the door and said the word that keeps wood in the shape I need. Occupied. It answered not with sound but with weight, exactly where the hinge meets the promise. The rest of the story belongs to courts and books and the people who keep ledgers. Ours belongs to paper taped where hands go, to bulbs that do their jobs, to feet that practiced leaving so long that staying honest became easy. When I sleep, I still put my shoes where my hands can find them. I leave the window honest. I keep the rope where I can reach it. And if a name tries to walk into the room and pretend to be the point, I let the door I taught do the talking. We don't collect names here. We collect exits. We count anyway. By October the valley learned to sleep with one window open again. We didn't call it safe. We called it ordinary, which is a braver word. The binder in the office acquired coffee rings and authority. People borrowed it the way you borrow a neighbor's ladder, quietly, to do real work. A complex 3 streets over sent a thank you note. We copied everything. Our laundry room says occupied out loud now. I slid the note under after, thanks we keep, and the spine made that small, proud creak I trust. The station rang me up for another process thing, paperwork with chairs. Downtown this time, an echoey floor where the elevators speak in numbers and the air is set to lawyer. I told the same small truths, yes, the bulbs, yes, the latch, yes, the posted hours, yes, the count you can do without thinking. A clerk pressed me a paper cup like a medal. You did the job, she said. I stopped arguing with that sentence and put it in my pocket with the rest. News turned back into weather, highs, lows, the occasional siren that belonged to someone else. When the nickname tried to wear a crown on the 6 o'clock, I let the volume be a rumor. In our row we knew better than to give a mouth more room than a door. Kite wrote on cream paper that smelled faintly of glue. When relief shows up, don't confuse it with forgetfulness. Keep the list where hands go. Under it, replace one bulb a week, even if it isn't dead. Practice corners when you're carrying groceries. Count during good music so your body learns to count without fear for company. I obeyed. Thursday nights, one fresh bulb, whether or not the old one begged. On walks home I took corners wide with a bag of oranges and let the seam be only a seam. I counted over a song I loved until the numbers felt like harmony. A postcard landed from Monterey Park, just a photograph of a plaza with kids and pigeons. On the back, "We borrowed your binder. It fits here too." I pinned it on the office corkboard between a missing cap flyer and a softball schedule. The flock was bigger than our hedges. Good. The woman from Unit 3 taped her own move-in notes inside her door, half my handwriting, half hers. Nose out. One hand free. Keys equals distance. If anyone says just or quick, make it never. Count. Move. She underlined move so hard the pen left a groove you could feel with your fingertip if you touched the paper like you were testing a heartbeat. I touched it every time she wasn't home, like a blessing borrowed. Autumn trimmed the air, the stucco finally cooled. The lamp at the end of the lane kept doing its two-breath shrug and then remembering itself. Reflex stayed on schedule. 1, 2, 3, 20. 21 for the old cliff. Habit is a handrail you build out of minutes. On a late afternoon that carried the smell of wet baseball dirt, the market clerk slid a folded strip of register paper to me with his top 10 light bulbs again, updated. "You'll want to know they stopped making the good cheap ones," he said, aggrieved on my behalf. "The new brand lies about lumens." I logged it under lighting, notes. "Rooms lie in the dark, sometimes bulbs do, too. Winter made the refrigerator's hum sound generous. Machines like jobs. So do we." The kids wrote RU in chalk and let the N be understood by everyone who lived here. The whistle on the gate collected dust that looked like dignity. When the next year turned over like a page, the payphone on the corner rang just once, showing off, or checking that we still loved it. I picked up anyway. "File is sleeping," Kite said. "Not dead. Don't wake it on purpose." "I won't," I said. "We're busy with the boring parts." "Those are the parts worth keeping," she said. "Boring keeps breath in the room." Months slid. The nickname learned to live in headlines without needing our door. We tested the opener once a week the way people test smoke alarms, annoying, necessary. We started calling the binder the book out loud because books teach, and rooms listen when you name the furniture correctly. A year and some change after Loa Gararon, a radio on a counter at the licensing bureau said pre-trial and jury and other words that belonged to rooms with pews for people's patients. I took the number like a vitamin, with water, not on an empty stomach. I did not decorate my kitchen with it. Doors don't care about court calendars. Jenny and I kept the rope simple. At 10 p.m. we texted in even when we were 5 feet from a bed that had learned our names. On nights when our nerves invented weather, we counted together on the phone and let the refrigerator hum keep time. 20. 21, because overshooting the cliff is what practice is for. When the verdicts arrived years later, carried like a procession on radios and mouths, a date that belongs to other ledgers, the fall of 1989, if you write it down, I let the sound in like sunlight through a narrow window. Guilty is a word courts are allowed to own. It doesn't change how a hallway needs to be taught. I wrote a single line in the book under after. The door kept its shape before the word arrived. Keep teaching doors. The woman from Unit 3 brought cake that night and plates you throw away without apology. We didn't say cheers. We said thank you with crumbs. The deputy with the quiet eyes stood in our doorway like a person who had practiced the right amount of solemn. "This won't undo anything," he said again. We said we know again. He added, "I like your book." We let that be a gift. Kite's letter came once more, the paper heavy, the ink dark like she'd slept first. "Names conclude in courtrooms," she wrote. "Practice concludes never. That's not a punishment. It's a road." She drew the open square and, inside the hinge, the tiny number 20. I traced it with my fingernail until the paper learned a groove. In the spring that followed, a new tenant asked if we had any rules beyond the lease. I handed her the notes for new tenants page without commentary. She read it, mouth moving over NO and occupied and count and move, then looked up like someone who had just been given a spare key. "This is simple," she said, and there was relief in that sentence. "That's why it works," I said. She slid the page into a plastic sleeve and taped it behind her door where hands go. Once in a while the seam between buildings still looks like it wants to audition for old habits. We say no with light and corners and feet that already learned forward. Concrete tries to make a conversation with fear. We let the whistle do the talking until the echo gives up and makes itself useful. On the kind of evening that remembers how to be golden, I walked the row with a paper cup of coffee and counted for no reason except gratitude. The opener coughed once and lifted like a curtain. The lamp did its hiccups and behaved. A kid hopped the chalk boxes and yelled "RU" at the last square, and the missing end still landed in every ear. I put my palm on my door and said, "Occupied," because you don't stop saying thank you just because the party is over. The wood answered with weight, not a sound, a promise, and I believed it because we taught each other how. When I sleep now, it's not because history was kind, it's because habit is. Shoes where hands can find them. Window honest. Phone where fingers go first. Cards where eyes land without planning. The book on the office shelf with a sign that says "Borrow Me," and thumbprints from places a bus ride away on the plastic cover. If you ask me what we did in Rosemead on March 17, 1985, I'll tell you what I always tell anyone who wants a neat story: we didn't open a door, we said run, we listened to concrete for its one honest sentence and gave it ours back. After that, we counted. Then we moved. Then we kept the count, because rooms aren't done learning and neither are we. If you ask me what we did the day the radio said Loa Gararon, I'll say, we ate cake and retired no practices. We put one more bulb in. We kept the call tree alive. We started another book across town because start another was written where we couldn't ignore it. If you want a name, the papers have them. In our row we collect exits. The lamp at the end of the lane hiccups twice and remembers itself. I do too. 1, 2, 3, 20, 21, for the habit that leaves the edge behind. By late October, the valley exhaled through orange groves and laundromats. Nights were ordinary on purpose, street lights yawning on schedule, sprinklers coughing at the borders of lawns. The lamp at the end of our row did its two-breath shrug and behaved. I counted anyway because muscle is greedy in all the good ways. The book in the office, we had stopped pretending it was only a binder, grew a patina, coffee rings, a thumbprint in blue chalk, a rip at the tab labeled after that someone fixed with honest tape. People borrowed it the way you borrow a ladder, quietly, to do real work. A complex in El Monte wrote, copied everything. Our laundry room says occupied out loud now. We logged it under thanks we keep. The spine made that small proud creak that sounds like a door choosing not to argue. Work was work. Groceries, rent, the weekly bulb. The refrigerator kept pretending to be a heart, I let it. Machines like jobs. So do we. On the bus to see my sister, I practiced corners in a different hallway, the station's tiled tunnel where shoes talk and echoes lie for sport. A man in a cap tried out a sentence on the air 2 yards ahead of me. Quick, do you know the time? And I let my watch belong to my pocket, not to him. Occupied, I said to the tile the way you drop a coin into a slot. It rang. He pivoted, rubber on grit, that hush like a eraser on paper, and chose a different face to practice on. The tunnel let me pass because I paid him posture. At my sister's, we drank coffee on the steps and she asked about the nickname the papers were still tuning like an old radio. You listen, she said. I listen for shoes, I said. Rubber is weather. She laughed until she didn't and then wrote listen for rubber on a card and taped it behind her door. When I left, she texted in even though I could see her from the bus window. We learned to like simple vows. Back home, the HOA drafted maintenance rules that were not a sermon, day hours posted big, names stitched honest on shirts, work orders taped to doors like passports, any jest or quick sent away with a hand and a whistle. The first week, a man without a badge tried quick anyway at the laundry. Mrs. Salgado lifted her mop like a staff and said, "Never," in a voice the tile has been quoting ever since. Kite's cream envelope arrived inside a coupon mailer like it wanted cover. "When a city wants a villain, remember to protect bystanders," she wrote. "Don't let your fear deputize you into seeing suspects where employees are. Rules protect both doors." Under it, in neat lines. Ask for the work order. Paper behaves. Look for the name that belongs to a budget. Time is a uniform. Daylight is honest clothing. Loud is early, not punishment. We copied that section into the book under maintenance and hung a smaller version in the laundry room where hands go. The latch made its honest clack. People breathed like they were remembering how. News drifted in the shape of nouns whose meanings live in courtrooms: arraignment, pre-trial, jury selection. I let the vocabulary knock, then set it on the sugar bowl with the other folded truths. Locks don't care about subpoenas. Doors learn only what you teach them. The station called for a process walkthrough with a camera that cared more about light levels than faces. "We're documenting how rows change," the detective said. "So other places can skip the learning curve." We clapped in the bay to count echoes: 1 clean reply when the door was down, 2 when it was up, 3 if we opened the seam and let the corridor gossip. "If it says it twice, you leave," I said. He nodded and shot the sign we'd taped by the pull cord: Echo X2 equals go. Echo X3 equals already gone. A rumor tried to climb our fence anyway. The new maintenance guy wore caps. The new maintenance guy walked quiet. The rumor did what rumors do, borrowed our old fear's shoes. The book swatted it with paper. Work order? Name stitched? Hours posted? He had all 3, plus a laugh that remembered to be small when a lady at the mailbox said she was nervous. "You're right," he said. "Be early. I'll knock louder." The rumor moved out. The man stayed. I kept counting at boring times so my body wouldn't wait for storms to learn the math. In line at the bodega. Waiting for a bus. Stirring a pot. 20. 21. To leave a cliff behind on purpose. It makes dinner taste like patience. The market clerk upgraded his light bulb list to a photocopied handout titled Top 10 Lamps That Tell the Truth with prices and asterisks, and a footnote that called out one brand as a liar. "Put it in your book," he said. We did, under lighting, notes. Rooms lie most when bulbs do. A small near miss came in daylight because of course it did. I was on the footbridge by the wash, hot metallic rails, shadow underbelly where echo likes to pretend it's a person. Rubber whispered behind me, "SKSSSK, not in a hurry, not slow, just the pace of a mouth that expected a door to open because it asked." "Count," said Muscle. 1, 2, 3, 4. The pitch of the whisper didn't change. 5, 6, 7. I took the stairs wide so my shoulder faced space, not wall. 8, 9, 10. The whisper stopped because I changed the math of the corner. I came out into a patch of sunlight that had learned to be brave. The man in the cap turned to face the wash and examined his own shoes like they were a sky. We both let the day have us. It kept us. The detective called that night. "Nothing official," he said. "We grabbed a burglar off the far end of that bridge half an hour after your walk. Not your guy. Someone else who thinks corners owe him favors. Your rules save more than one story." He cleared his throat like the truth had caught there. "Just keep the book open. We were already doing that. Court letters found me like recycled weather. Subpoena, chain of custody for a key ring I had handed to a paramedic through air thick with sirens. I wore a plain dress and a face that could tell the truth without enjoying it. The attorney asked if I recognized my keys in a plastic bag. Plastic changes their accent, I said, and the court reporter smothered a smile and typed anyway. The judge blinked at a clock. Someone said recess as if it were a verb for grown-ups. We were released back into the room called the city where doors outnumber microphones. Jenny and I turned our I'm in chorus into a small neighborhood festival, cake in the courtyard for no reason, a table where we laminated copies of notes for new tenants and added a line at the bottom, "You are allowed to leave your own living room." People nodded like the sentence had been waiting at the edge of their mouth for years. Kite's next letter was only 3 lines. If the radio says closure, let it belong to courts. If your hallway says practice, give it your hands. If your mouth says sorry, change the sentence to no. I taped it above the phone and practiced no at the door like a musician scales. Quiet. Then louder. Then ordinary again. The door didn't mind. It liked being honest. A winter rain ran its fingers through the hedges and found everything still attached. We proselytized less, practiced the same. The book adopted a borrow me sign in block letters. It traveled to Alhambra, to South El Monte, to a church basement in Boyle Heights that ran a Thursday night class called Leave. I went once and watched a woman teach a room full of strangers how to say occupied like a bell and then signed their copy of the book on the page that belonged to rooms, not to names. On the walk home, a kid hopped chalk boxes someone else had abandoned, the last square had weathered from ran to RU again, and the end still arrived in every year. The lamp at the end of the lane hiccuped twice and steadied. I counted because I like paying attention more than I like luck. The next envelope from Kite smelled faintly of the starch that loves stationery. When the city tries to turn your fear into a brand, hand it a list instead, she wrote. Underneath, she drew the open square with 20 hidden in the hinge like a bead. At the bottom, start another. We did. Book 2 began in a cardboard box on my kitchen table with tabs made from tape flags and a title page that said laundry, light, door, echo, run. I carried it to a complex 3 streets over that had a laundry under a stairwell and a seam like a secret. You can have it, I said, and the manager cried the way people do when their relief embarrasses them. We'll bring it back, she promised. No, I said. Start your own. The rule multiplied. Somewhere in December, the radio in the bodega said jury selection and Venus retrograde in the same hour, which is how you know you live in a city that can hold contradictory weather. I bought milk, nodded at the clerk, and didn't let trial turn my key in the wrong direction. The work didn't change. At the station, I sat in a side room while a detective tested how long it takes to cross a row in the dark if you don't know where the latches live. 29 seconds if you haven't practiced, he said. Much less if you have. He was pleased at time behaving like a tool. I thought of Kite's first card, you made time behave. Sometimes notes are geometry. A new neighbor arrived with a goldfish and a nervous laugh. I gave her a copy of notes for new tenants and the call tree numbers. She read them the way you read a map you didn't know you needed. This is small, she said. It's enough, I said. She believed me because the book has good manners. January made the refrigerator's imitation heart louder. Machines like jobs in winter, they need to feel useful. I oiled the lock because maintenance is a liturgy. I sharpened the pencil that lives near the phone because lists deserve good points. On a nothing Tuesday, the footbridge called me again, errand, daylight, rails that collect the day's heat and give it back. At the top of the stairs I felt a tug, not fear, not omen, just a room remembering how to be a room and testing whether I remembered how to leave it. I counted out loud because I could. 1, 2, 3. A boy on a bike echoed me, because kids are mirrors when you need them. 4, 5, 6. I stepped wide. The seam stayed a seam. A man with a cap looked at the sky and decided he was late for a different story. The wash made its flat river sound. We were allowed to keep our day. I wrote count of boring times in the book under practice and felt ridiculous and then not. Paper behaves. So will rooms, if you give them chores. Spring snuck a blossom smell into the dryer vents. The kids' talk came back. The whistle on the nail by the gate grew a cobweb that looked like lace. We left it. Beauty is allowed. A letter on blue-ruled paper, spiral fringe, ink pressed like the hand wanted to leave a dent, slid under my door. I left my living room because your card gave me permission. I am in. No name. The little open square in the corner, door half drawn. I punched it and filed it under after, thanks we keep. The stack of gratitude grew until the book could keep a real door from drifting shut on a windy day. Paper can be a wedge. Paper can be a spine. Trial dates gathered on calendars downtown like storm fronts. We acknowledged the barometer and kept installing bulbs. When the verdicts came a lifetime later, 1989 written in ink I didn't put on my fridge, I let the word guilty into my kitchen like a well-behaved guest. It didn't rearrange my furniture. It didn't teach a single door how to keep its shape. It was still worth hearing. We met that night in the courtyard without plan. Someone brought cake and the wrong knife and we made the right slices anyway. The deputy with the quiet eyes came by in his civilian face and said, "This doesn't undo anything," and we said, "We know," and he added, "It changes tomorrow," and we said, "Yes," and then we made tomorrow with a list. Kite's last card for this file arrived folded small enough to hide under a stamp. "Continuity is not comfort," she wrote. "It's a road you now know by heart. Walk it until a new hallway asks for your feet." She drew the open square and wrote 20 in the hinge with a dot like a bead. I traced it until the paper learned a groove. That week I put "Start Another" on a sticky note inside the book's cover and walked 3 streets to the complex that had borrowed ours in El Monte. Their manager met me at the gate with her own binder, tabs crooked, spelling different than ours, rules the same. "We're teaching corners," she said. "We're learning loud." She pointed at a sign in the laundry room window. "If anyone says just or quick, make it never." My eye stung in the exact degree that keeps you honest. She handed me their copy. On the last page someone had written "I'm in 4 languages. The N still landed in every ear. At home, the lamp at the end of the row did its 2-breath shrug and held. I counted because I always will. 20. 21, for the old cliff I like leaving behind. I put my palm on my door and said occupied because gratitude likes practice. The wood answered with weight exactly where the hinge meets the promise. Inside, the refrigerator practiced being a heart. Machines like jobs. I called Jenny. "I'm in," I said. "Me too," she said. "Count anyway." We did. The rope held. The book leaned open on the office shelf with the "Borrow Me" sign like a smile. A kid ran the hopscotch and yelled "Are you" at the last square and the missing letter still arrived. A payphone a block away rang once for luck and then decided we didn't need it. The city will always try to sell you names. The rooms will always ask for practice. I know which invoice to pay. And when a different hallway in a different place flickers twice and the air changes temperature and rubber whispers its hush on tile, I will carry the same map folded small. NO is a complete sentence. Occupied keeps the door in its shape. Loud is a kind of early. Count to 20. Then move. The rest belongs to the next door that thinks it can own a name and finds out it can't.